The invisible man behind the curtain. Every theater has its stars, its lights, its applause, its elite. But behind the curtain there are shadows. And sometimes those shadows carry stories more powerful than the ones under the spotlight. No one claps for the janitor. No one notices the man who arrives first and leaves last, the one who scrubs the floors that echo with rehearsals, who collects the glitter of dreams fallen from costumes, who breathes in silence what others shout in fame. At Teatro Verdi, everyone knew the actors by name. They greeted the producer with kisses on the cheek. They complimented the costume designer, the lighting crew. But he was just the cleaning guy. His name was Julio, a man with worn-out shoes, a faded uniform, a quiet gaze, and hands that had seen more life than most. They laughed near him, made jokes about him, walked past him as if he was part of the wall. But Julio carried a secret, not one of shame, but one of greatness buried under years of silence. What no one knew was that Julio had once stood on that very stage, not as a janitor, but as a director, a master of words, a lover of theater, a soul made of stories, one fire, one tragedy, one twist of fate, and the curtain fell on his life, or so they thought, until something happened, something that would shake the theater's walls, expose arrogance, restore dignity, and bring one man's silent legacy to light. This isn't a story about pity, it's a story about recognition, about how truth can echo louder than applause, and how sometimes the most invisible person in the room is the one with the most to teach. Chapter 1. The Janitor's Silence. No one really looked at him. They passed by, coffee in hand, scripts under their arms, always in a rush, always talking loud, laughing, rehearsing, but no one ever stopped to say good morning to the man who arrived before the doors even opened, Julio Montero. He was the janitor of the Grand Teatro Verdi, a legendary cultural house known for its elite productions, its wealthy audience, and its prestigious directors. Julio, he was the man who cleaned up the spilled champagne, swept the stage after the curtains closed, and scrubbed bathrooms after opening nights. He didn't belong to that world. At least, that's what they thought. Grey uniform, worn shoes, calloused. Hands and silence, always silence. He never complained, never answered back, never interrupted. He worked, observed, listened, and smiled. But if someone paid attention, really paid attention, they'd see it. That quiet sparkle in his eyes when someone spoke about theater with passion, that deep breath he took every time he passed the stage, that pause before turning off the lights, as if he didn't want to leave. Julio loved that place, not because of the glamour, but because once, many years ago, he had been on that very stage, before the fire, before the fall, before he became invisible. That part of the story no one knew, and it was about to surface in a way that no one could have imagined. Chapter 2. Voices that won't stay quiet. The new cast had arrived, young, vibrant, full of opinions and ego. They treated Julio like a ghost. They left costumes on the floor, ignored his greetings, and whispered jokes behind his back. "Hey, mop guy," one laughed. "Don't slip on our talent," the others chuckled. Except one, Lucas, a young actor with uncertain steps and a heart that didn't quite fit in. One night, Lucas forgot his script. He returned to the rehearsal room and stopped, frozen. Julio was there, alone, standing in the middle of the room, reciting lines from the play, with a depth and emotion that made Lucas's skin crawl. He didn't interrupt. He watched, in awe. The next day, Lucas approached him. "Mr. Julio, how do you know those lines?" Julio smiled modestly. "I've heard them enough times," Lucas insisted. "Would you help me rehearse?" From that night on, they met in secret. Julio corrected. Tones, posture, breathing. He coached him like a real director. Word spread. More actors started asking for his help, quietly, of course, until one afternoon, a well-known producer walked into the rehearsal room and found half the cast gathered around Julio. He was giving feedback, precise, passionate, poetic. She didn't interrupt. She recorded it and posted the video online with a simple caption, "Wisdom wears work clothes." The video exploded, but Julio remained silent until the curtain rose again. Chapter 3. The Silence That Teaches Theatre. Verdi had never been so full, not even for its famous premieres, reporters, cameras, students, artists. Everyone came to see the janitor of theatre, as the papers now called him. The producer invited Julio to direct the next play inspired by his life. He refused. "I don't need applause," he said. "Just let them hear my silence." But they insisted, and eventually he agreed to share one scene. Opening night, spotlight, silence. Julio entered the stage, wearing the same uniform. He didn't act. He told his story of a man who had once been a theatre director until a fire destroyed the set and his life, of losing his wife, his daughter, of choosing silence over pity, of sweeping the floor he once ruled, because even dust carries dreams. When he finished, the audience was still, no one moved. And then a standing ovation. The same people who ignored him now cried for him, applauded him, saw him. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. Chapter 4. The Echo of Transformation. It was a grey Saturday. Soft rain, cold breeze. Julio arrived early, like always. A black car pulled up in front of the theatre. A woman stepped out, older, teary-eyed. Beside her, a young woman with sharp features and a trembling smile. Julio froze. His cloth dropped, his heart stopped. Julio? It was his sister, and the young woman, his daughter. The daughter he hadn't seen in over 20 years, the one he lost after the fire. The one who believed her father had disappeared forever. "You're real," she whispered. "And you've grown beautiful," he replied, voice shaking. They embraced. Decades of pain in one hug. A silent forgiveness. A quiet love. Witnessed. By the producer, by the young actors, by the very stage he once swept. "I saw your name in the paper," his daughter said. "I saw your face. I knew it was you." That reunion made headlines, but the lesson went deeper. The janitor who taught the cast, the man who swept the floor and their hearts, the father who never stopped loving. The next month, a new play premiered. The Stage That Heard the Silence. Inspired by him, people lined up around the block. Children, teachers, artists, strangers. At the end of the show, when Julio stepped on stage, still in uniform but glowing, the entire theatre rose to their feet. He said only this, "Thank you for finally seeing me." And that silence spoke louder than any standing ovation ever could.